Last year, Amazon made more money from my art than I did. And I'm the one designing, packaging, printing, and shipping it. People love to say Amazon is just capitalism on steroids. But I'm here to tell you no, it is something much weirder and darker. Economist Yanis Varoufakis calls Amazon today a product of technofeudalism. A system where Amazon doesn't just host shops, it owns shops. And everyone else, the buyers, the warehouse workers, small sellers like myself, is essentially stuck paying rent to live and work there. In this video, I want to zoom in on Amazon as a techno-feudal estate, how it squeezes sellers who actually make the products, how it treats its workers, and what this all means for artists and small sellers like us. Once I started looking into the data, I realized it wasn't just me being salty. The whole system is built this way on purpose. So let's talk about what Amazon actually is and what we can do about it as artists, small businesses, and conscious buyers. So let's start big picture. Amazon controls roughly 35 to 40% of all US e-commerce sales. And more than 60% of those sales come from third-party sellers. So the small businesses, the brands, the artists, and the resellers using Amazon's marketplace. So most of the stuff that you see on Amazon isn't even made by Amazon. And this is where techno-feudalism comes in. Varoufakis argues that platforms like Amazon aren't just companies in the market. They are digital estates, and they own the cloud capital, the website and app, the warehouse and logistics systems, the data and recommendation engines, the payment rails, and the ad systems. And then they charge rent to anyone who wants to access this. And this rent can look like referral and fulfillment fees, advertising that we have to buy just to be seen, monthly subscriptions just to have a professional seller account, all the data that we hand over every time we scroll or click or buy anything. If medieval lords took a share of the harvest, Amazon takes a slice of every transaction that happens on its estate. That is an entirely different power structure. A study for the Institute of Local Self-Reliance looked at Amazon's fees over time. In 2014, Amazon took roughly 19% of every seller's revenue on average. But by 2021, that number jumped to about 34%, mostly because of rising fulfillment fees and the growing pressure to buy advertising. Other analysis, including those cited in the FTC's antitrust case against Amazon, argue that by the 2020s, Amazon was effectively capturing 30 to 40% or more of many sellers' revenue once you combine referral fees, FBA fees, and ad spend. But Amazon gets landlord level rent just for letting me exist on its estate. And that's the techno-feudal logic. You don't own the land, but you just keep praying that the Lord will send you traffic. So if you've ever felt like you're working for Amazon as a seller rather than with Amazon, you are not imagining it. Now let's look at the workers. Because techno-feudalism isn't just about fees, it's about human bodies. Multiple investigations using federal safety data have found that injury rates in Amazon warehouses are significantly higher than similar warehouse jobs elsewhere. One major analysis found that the injury rate in Amazon warehouses was more than double that of non-Amazon warehouses. And that injury rates actually rose in 2022 compared to the year before. And then there's the turnover. A New York Times investigation found that the company burns through an entire frontline workforce in roughly a year. Leaked internal documents show high-level executives worrying that Amazon might literally run out of workers in some regions due to this high turnover. And that is what a techno-feudal estate looks like. The small group up top collecting the rent and the data, while everyone underneath is expendable. I started selling my artwork on Amazon in 2017. I realized I was competing against mass-produced wall decor, drop shippers, and big brands that could outspend me on advertising without even blinking. And to even have a chance, I had to optimize every listing for conversion, constantly tweak pricing, and start paying for advertising just so I wouldn't disappear. By the time Amazon takes its cut, I've paid for my packaging and shipping materials, my production costs, advertising. The profit left for me is almost laughable. And it's made me ask this question: why am I working so hard just to pay rent on Jeff Bezos' land? And that's the emotional piece that technofeudalism doesn't always capture. This dreadful feeling of being replaceable. So if I burn out and need a break, or if I stop paying for ads, or if my metrics dip, Amazon will just surface someone else. I am not a partner of Amazon. I am a serf with a storefront. And you might be thinking, okay, well, big companies squeezing small sellers, isn't that just capitalism? Well, no. In classic capitalism, companies make most of their money by producing and selling goods and services in a competitive marketplace. This classic capitalism encourages a more natural ecosystem of companies being better for their customers by focusing on their offerings. However, in a system like technofeudalism, companies like Amazon are increasingly making their money by owning the platform, controlling access, and charging rent at every single transaction for the sellers. When you have one giant company mediating a huge share of online shopping, charging rising fees to millions of sellers, extracting intense labor from warehouse workers, and using our data and attention as raw material, you're not in a competitive market anymore. Small businesses and artists like myself are working within Jeff Bezos' walled garden. As Varoufakis argues, once these cloud rents become large enough, the economy stops functioning as classic capitalism at all, and we're in a new landlord economy, just digital. I don't think the answer is everyone boycott Amazon today and go live in the forest off-grid. In my weird little world, I would love that. But most of us can't do that because we are all entangled in this. But as artists and business owners, we can make more strategic decisions. Here is how looking through the technofeudal lens has changed things for me. If I'm gonna pay a high rent to be on someone else's land, I am going to treat Amazon as one channel of a larger ecosystem of income streams so that Amazon isn't my entire business. I choose to focus on the spaces that I can control: my website, my email list, local shops where I know the owner. These grow much more slowly, but I'm not hemorrhaging half of my margins to a platform that sees me as replaceable. If there is a small brand or artist that I love, I choose to buy directly from them rather than going through Amazon. It is a tiny act, but it keeps more money and power with them and a little bit less with the landlord. So no, Amazon is not capitalism on steroids. It is a digital kingdom of warehouses, servers, workers, and sellers, all feeding into a machine that extracts rent in every direction. For artists and small makers, this can feel really discouraging. Like the game is rigged, because in many ways it is. When you see Amazon and Etsy and YouTube and all of these platforms as digital estates, you can stop taking every setback personally. You can think something that's a little closer to the truth, which is, okay, this is how this estate works. Where can I carve out a little space of my own? And tell me in the comments, what is one little thing that you're gonna do to move you further off of the technofeudal estate, whether it's Amazon or Etsy or Instagram or YouTube? And if you want a deeper dive into the actual mechanics of technofeudalism, I talk about that here. Thank you so much for being here. Take care of your art, take care of your nervous system, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.